project advisor in ISMEA, Maya Ferlins.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much, Justina, and welcome to the another I3 Support Facility virtual event. I think it will be very interesting. So my name is Maya Ferlins. I'm a project advisor at the ISMEA in the unit of place-based innovation and dealing with the I3 instrument. Just a few words. What is I3 instrument for those who are new to this event? I3 instrument is rather new program, new instrument starting in the 2021 and is a part of the European Regional Development Fund. So basically is the part of the regional policy family. It's instrument that runs for 7 years from 2021 to 2027, and its budget is around 490 million euros in this 7-year period. The main objective of the instrument is to facilitate the transition from interregional cooperation to interregional investments and to basically support small and medium-sized companies, big companies, research institutes, clusters, public authorities, and other stakeholders from regional innovation ecosystem, so that they work on shared smart specialization priorities, so that they strengthen regional innovation ecosystem and develop interregional value chains. With the I3 instrument, we support activities like testing, piloting, validation, market replication, and innovation activities. Projects are focused on 3 thematic priorities: on digital transition, on green transition, and on smart manufacturing. And the project basically received financial and advisory support for joint innovation projects, moving from some ideas to implementation to the implementing different products or services in the market. The projects are usually, we have a basically 2 strands. Strand 1 is so-called investment strength, that is focusing on strengthening the competitiveness of existing European value chains. Then we have strand 2A, which is also investment strength, and is focusing on developing of value chains in less developed regions. And then we have a capacity building part, which basically is focused on capacity building in less developed regions. Investment projects are usually a bit bigger than capacity building projects. They are up to 10 million euros with 70% of co-funding. The partnership is minimal 5 partners from different member states and regional ecosystem. And the project have to already present the portfolio of investment projects with TRL at least 6, and then throughout the project, this innovation has to be matured to TRL 9 and be basically ready to the market. Just some news. Tomorrow, we are expecting the publication of 2 new calls for proposal for Strand 1 and Strand 2A. So investment calls will be published tomorrow. So you can check the news on the ISMEA website. Total budget is 48 million euros for both strands. Deadline is 13th of November, and we are organizing Information Day on 11th of June. For the capacity 2B call for proposal, it will be open later this year on 23rd of October and with closing on 19th March of 2026. But I invite you to regularly check ISMEA website, where I3 instrument is explained a little bit more in the details, and there are also different news and events that are organized within the instrument. Thank you so much, and back to you, Justina.
Thank you. Now I will give a word to our coordinator, Santiago.
Thank you very much, Justina. Hello, everyone. I will give a brief introduction to the presentation of what the I3 support facility is. The support facility is already foreseen in the ERDF regulation when establishing the interregional innovation investments. The article says, Article 13 says that some budget will be dedicated to learning activities to capitalize and disseminate results of I3 projects. But also after the first calls, evidence shows that more developed actors in more developed regions were present in most of the projects, while actors from less developed regions, especially in the East, were less numerous. Also, outermost regions actors are not engaged in these networks. So this was the case for setting this support facility for the I3 instrument. It's a project of 3 years launched by ISMEA in collaboration with DG Regio. And yes, the objective is to promote the uptake of the I3 instrument, especially in these less developed regions and outermost regions and regions with specific challenges, but also is to support the stakeholders in these areas, especially public authorities and innovation actors, the potential beneficiaries in these projects, to build the capacities to either promote, in the case of regional authorities, or participate in I3 instrument, in interregional collaboration, participate in building these European value chains in Europe. That this is the objective of the I3 instrument and the I3 support facility. So how can you benefit from the I3 instrument, the I3 instrument support facility? So there will be, we are currently developing a website that will be launched before summer, and there you will be, you will have the opportunity for partner search and share knowledge as well, to look for another partners to build your partnerships, but also to monitor project progress with the I3 Observatory, where all projects will be in one visualization tool, and also we will show synergies with other interregional innovation initiatives. There is also a place for actors that are engaging in interregional collaboration, or those willing to engage in interregional collaboration, to discuss about good practices, policy instruments that are currently in regions to support the I3 instrument. So at the end will be some learnings of these discussions and recommendations to be implemented in the regions to promote this interregional collaboration. And also we are planning a set of networking and events, in person and virtual, like the one we're having today. We are having 12 virtual events every year during the 3 years, and also we are having an annual forum in person. And next one will be in Brussels, I can announce, in 25 of September. And registration is not open yet, but will be in June. For the moment, you can save the date. And just my last thing is, please sign up for to be informed about our activities. And we will leave the link in the chat, and just to keep in touch and keep growing this community. Now I pass the floor back to Justina. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Santiago. I will now introduce our first speaker, Maurits, who will take on the role of main presenter and will introduce you to the topic at hand. Maurits, go ahead.
Good. So thank you for this invitation. It's wonderful to present some of the work that we have done, and hopefully also to take you along in being able to more structurally forge interregional collaborations. So this is an overview of the agenda of today. We've got the welcome and introduction of the I3 facility. That's been done by by the Santiago and the other people from the I3 support facility. I will shortly make an introduction to the event of today and provide a little bit of context. So the introduction of the event that's taking place now, I would say. And then I will introduce the interregional collaborations and the innovation corridors a little bit more in depth. And then we'll have a little bit of time to do an exercise and then shift towards one of my colleagues, Charlotte Edzard from Digital Hub Management, who will provide you some practical examples of what we presented. And then we'll do a kind of an epilogue, looking a little bit more in depth on the corridor services. And we hopefully will finish at 3:30. So that's more or less the agenda. So let me start with sharing with you my journey into those interregional collaborations, or as we call them, interregional innovation corridors. So for me, the journey started in 2012 with a large project for DG Grow, exploring how you can cross the valley of death. And one of the things that came out of it was the identification of shared facilities for pilot production, which was in the Netherlands, in Smart Industry, renamed to the Field Labs. And within the European Commission, it was coined as Digital Innovation Hubs. During the period of 2018-2020, we had the digital DNet project, which explored it a little bit further. And recently, we just finished also the Bowie project, and that engaged me very much with interregional collaborations and trying to establish them on a more structural level. At this moment, we are active in the DNet Academy. So we join up the DNet project and the Bowie project into a facility, the DNet Academy, which helps to train, mentor entities or professionals to be more empowered on creating interregional collaborations. And that's more or less the basis, the foundation of what we're going to present today. So let me start with just scratching the surface a little bit about interregional collaborations. So what we saw during the Bowie project and also all kinds of other projects, if you want to engage in an interregional way, it is very difficult. What you see is that it takes a lot of funding or efforts in general in order to set it up, to engage with each other from two regions into a project. And then after that, you can do the implementation of the project. But the biggest problem is, of course, the project development, the actual development of the proposition. And that's one of the core foundations for European policy, of course, because it's about lowering that cost with European funding. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to try to find out how you can do that while reducing that cost. And that's where, for us, the corridors came in. And that's something that we developed in the Bowie project. But first, let me also give the floor a little bit to Justina, because I would like to do a Menti on this. And Justina, can you take the floor to show how the Menti can be reached and what kind of things can be done there? Let me see here.
Yes, if you can see the instructions, and I will also send the link in chat for those using it on their laptops.
So this exercise or this Menti is about exploring what can be offered from your region. What kind of things would you like to offer to other regions? But also, on the other hand, also, what kind of things you would need from your regional side. It's always a very interesting mechanism to understand the market for interregional collaboration a little bit more. So I would like to urge you all to go to the Menti and also then explore what you're offering, what your demand and supply is, more or less. So let's go back to the presentation. So this is what the Menti is about, and let me start by why European collaboration, because to be honest, it is always difficult to really understand what a European collaboration is about, and I would like to take the first more or less 10 minutes to better understand why you would collaborate on a European level. It's quite, if you look at Draghi and smart specialization, it is, those words are there and those values are there. But what it actually means in practice, that's a different story. And we have been researching this quite a bit, because it is very difficult to argument why, for example, an RTO, I'm working for TNO, which is a research and technology organization, why they would engage in European collaboration. And what we saw was that basically there are three entities: governments, service providers like the TNO kind of organizations, Fraunhofer, and but also technology providers, large industrial organizations, companies that provide technological and innovation services, and the end user. So the end user, SMEs, companies that or public authorities that actually use innovation services throughout Europe. So very quickly on the governments. What is the value for governments with regards to European collaboration? And I put those three because there's three layers within the European innovation ecosystem from the governmental position. So there's regional governments, national governments, and EU. And you can see here what the actual value is for those kind of organizations. And that's very much connected to what has been said in the Draghi report, and also with regard to smart specialization and all kinds of policy instruments that are offered by the European collaboration. It is about understanding what the value for European collaboration is for society at large. But now I would like to shift towards an entity that is really active in that collaboration. And I take my own, well, not my own organization, but my own type of organization, an RTO, as a core topic to further show you what the argumentation could be for them to collaborate on a EU level. And please understand, there's limited collaborations. Our core business as a research and technology organization is to provide innovation services and provide outputs based on all kinds of assets that we have. So we've got knowledge, human capital, network connections, etc., etc. All those assets are available to make us deploy innovation services to a customer. But we do that through valorization mechanisms, and in the end, hopefully, we create outcome and impact for for end users. We use inputs for that: funding, data, knowledge, and also we, of course, address specific issues from the market, but also on societal level. So there is a kind of a connection between the end user, of course, and the inputs that we use as an organization. So that's the basic principle. And now, if you look at that, these are the main topics or the main values that we see with regard to our work as a research and technology organization at large. So the issues are, because of the European collaboration, they're upgraded to the international issues And we also have access to more markets that will provide us also some demand for our services. Our innovation services are also a little bit different because we can access different offerings from other organizations. It can be more complex, and that complexity also will be shifted to the actual innovations. The assets will change dramatically because we've got access to all kind of European assets. But it is also about branding. We can, if we say, okay, we engaged in European collaboration, it is better for our brand. And last but not least, it is a financing. We can access finance. So this is an overview why an organization, an RTO kind of organization, would like to be collaborating on a European level. But I can already tell you the return on investment of these European collaborations are very limited for us. So that's why we need funding to do these kind of things. And of course, European collaboration support by the European Commission should, in the end, initiate a collaboration that is sustained after the funding of the European Commission. And that's a different thing to do. Very quickly to end users. So looking at our kind of organizations, yeah, we offer the services to our customers, startups, and end user SMEs. They're looking more or less for funding. Large companies, access to markets. Public authorities, it's very often it's politics, why they want to engage and why they want to be connected. Of course, there are all kinds of other reasons why they also want to be connected, but this is the end game. So the problem is, it is costly to engage in European collaboration. So this is the reason why we came up with the idea of interregional corridors. You remember this overview. So if you create a corridor, you can lower the cost to the initiation, and you can also make it faster, the delivery of the services faster. But you need to have something in place, and that's the corridor investment, to allow that lowering of cost and fast track innovations. And that's where the post-project initiation kind of activities come in, and the corridors come in, because the corridors can lower cost and speed up European collaboration. So very quickly, it is important, of course, much more important than a few years ago, but there are different values and different reasons why European collaboration is important, looking at the different perspective for stakeholders. And the barrier is very much the initial costs. So, and the corridors will reduce these barriers and will increase actual collaboration. And now I would like to ask Justina if she can take over and show some results from the Menti. Hopefully you've been looking at that. So can you see how many people have reacted? Yeah, that's 10.
10, yes.
10 people. So this is all about expertise, offering expertise and specialty kind of infrastructures. So this is about the assets that are there. Can you now go to the demand? So here what you can see is that there's a very limited requests for offerings, manual skills, innovation culture. You can see that the offerings that is provided in the first slide does not is not in sync with what people are asking, and that's where you see that there's a that it's difficult to organize the market for interregional collaboration. Because if there's a lot of offerings available, but less demand on these offerings, on the other hand, there's a problem. And that's one of the major problems I see today in how to establish sustainable post-project collaborations. You need to work on it very much to understand how the offerings and how the needs are aligned with each other. So I will go back to my presentation now, if I can. Sorry about this, but share. I hope that you can see my presentation again.
Yes.
We can.
Good, good. So, corridors. I've been introducing the reasons why you would like to have a kind of a more structural collaborations, and I've introduced the term of corridors. So what are they? If you have one region and you have another region, there's innovation projects going around from one region to another. But what we see is that if you organize that through a kind of a stronghold on both sides of the gateway corridor, and you offer also corridor services, then you can lower the costs of initiating those innovation projects. I'm sure you all have been there, that there's one wonderful project initiated, which took a lot of effort and took a lot of money to set up and to initiate. It was a beautiful and a very good, valuable result, but the initiation would take so much efforts that it's not worth the effort to produce the things if it's not paid by the European Commission. So what you need is a corridor like this. And please be aware that we identified 4 levels of collaboration. Ad hoc level, you see that quite often, because that's I've got a need. There's another organization who wants something. We establish a one-off activity, and then it's over. And that's perfectly fine if there's not a real return on investment, if you need to spend a lot of money into setting up that corridor. But on a higher level, to create it on a higher level, that's quite costly. And you need to have the return on investment. And if that's not the case, stop. But if it is the case that 2 regions can really benefit from each other, then you need to upgrade it to a higher level. And what we identified is 4 building blocks for that. And let me be frank about this. My presentation now seems a little bit theoretical. We've got a full toolbox for this. We've got KPIs, mechanisms, how to development. What does it mean? In the later presentation, I'll share with you some insights scratching the surface already, but we've got a lot of materials available that you can just make use of. So let me know if you need that kind of materials. So we see that to create a sustained collaboration where innovation projects can be organized with a low barrier, you need to establish a corridor collaboration services, and you need to align the trust and culture between the 2 regions. You need to set in place organization and governments, etc., etc. These are the things that you need to further develop. So just an overview of all kinds of things. Establishing corridor is very complex. So that's why scratching the surface is not enough. You need to put effort into it. And my message is more or less use the funded project from the European Commission to think about those kind of things. And we can help you with how to make those operational with a lot of background information. So now I come to the exercise to just get some flesh on the bone for 4 building blocks. What we're going to do is we're going to have a 15-minute brainstorm, asking you to provide us information about how you could see those kind of things, and we'll look back at it a little bit, have a discussion, look at your inputs, and also I will share with you some more concrete aspects that we identified in the BOE project. So 4 building blocks we're gonna address 4 building blocks. So it's about the organization and governance. It's about the mission and value. What kind of things would you like to achieve with a corridor? We'll look at funding. What kind of funding mechanisms are there to support you in order to create a sustainable corridor? And also, we will ask you to take a little bit more look at the corridor collaboration support services. So, our mentee, and I'll give the floor to Justina for a moment again. It is to better understand what those building blocks are, and 10 minutes brainstorm, 20 minutes discussion of the key findings. Justina, can you take the floor again?
Yes, I believe we have the second Mentimeter. It is a different Mentimeter. I will add link as well now in the chat.
So my question to you is, please let us know very concrete with some words, phrases. One, what kind of aim value would you see between the 2 regions and the interregional corridor? What are important benefits that you can see from that collaboration? What kind of services would you like to offer to make sure that the collaboration between the 2 regions is easier? So, not talking about the innovation projects, I'm talking about the services provided by an entity that will manage the initiation of those kind of innovation projects. Then, what kind of funding is available to support the forging of such a structural corridor? And last but not least, what are important components to the organization and government structure that is needed to allow also a sustained collaboration between the 2 regions?
Let me know if you'd like me to switch to the next page, Maurits.
Oh, please. If you could skip through the pages a little bit and then go back. So this is the aim and value. So you can see here that the components for organization and government structure are still less developed, and that's of course because you will be focusing on the first three building blocks. So I would like to ask you also to give a little bit of time to the organization and governments. Justina, can you go back a little bit? Yeah. I love the word efficiency here at the middle because that's very important, of course, for the aim of an interregional collaboration. It is all about creating a more efficient initiation of collaboration, and sustainable is also a word here. So this is a wonderful word word cloud to show you also why the people would like to be involved. And from our experience, trust is also a very important thing to address. So it's very good that it's at the heart of this word cloud. Can you go back? Can you go forward, Justina? Yeah. So indeed, the corridor services it's all about communication, setting up communication, and that's at the heart of the team that will provide the services in order to facilitate one region to be connected to another region. And communication is at the heart. We see that as something that you also need to learn about, how to communicate, what to communicate. And just a quick thought about that. It's very easy to develop showcases for what's being going on and what is being addressed in one region, and to show that to another region. But to make that effective is very complicated, because usually what is done is that the best practices, description of the best practices, are developed by the entity that is providing the services, and it's that kind of information should allow the other side to decide, oh, this is an interesting party to contact, to make a contact with. And that's where decision making is at the heart of that communication. And very often it's not done like that. So, for example, wonderful overview of a service, but what the service actually cost and what the actual cost reduction for the operation of the user, of the customer was, that's hardly included in those best practices. And that's something to be really thinking about, how to set that up. But I also see with this overview, I see the shared experiences that can be done. How can you organize the sharing of experience in one region and another? The boot camps, a joint boot camp, organizing joint boot camps, very good idea and very good service to be provided by the corridor team. And the mapping of the ecosystems, also crucial, but mapping in a way that it identifies the gaps on either side. Using heat maps can be done. We've developed mechanisms for that, but to be very frank, identifying the core assets of a region, it is very difficult to do that in an effective way, so that people look at your outcomes and understand, okay, this is the value of your region. And we are working on that further to make that happen. So perhaps, yeah, the last part. The financing. Well, this is where the awkward things come in, because like the I3, there's all kind of different financing mechanisms available to set up and to engage in the development of a corridor, but the partnerships usually only are it is only possible for those partnerships to continue the corridor with continuous funding of these kind of activities. And if that's the case, of course, it is questionable if the actual value for European industry is there. Because if the value of European industry for that collaboration is very high, they would be willing to pay it themselves. But there's an element within the initiation of those corridors that needs to develop the assets. So the service deployment that you saw earlier on will continue after the funding of the European Commission or other funding agencies. And you need to really focus in the beginning on how to make that happening and what kind of revenue models there are. We've got all kinds of revenue models available that you can use to be paid by the private side, and that the public side will be down-geared a little bit, and that the private side can take over. So can you go to the last one? So what is important here, I would say, is to have someone leading, a person who organizes, a leading authority that brings together on a continuous basis the two sides and to organize the collaboration. And you also need to have formalized I would say, formalized governance structures available in order to make sure that the work will continue after the initiation of such a corridor. So I would like to go back to my presentation again now. Wait a minute. So, and I would like to show you the results and the ideas and the more concrete operational things that the Bowie project identified for those 4 building blocks. This is, and I'm not going to talk about every single point. I'll take some elements and perspectives. You will be sent the presentation will be made available, and you can take a closer look at it at a later stage. So, looking at aim and mission, we saw that customer needs, and to identify the customer needs from the 2 sides of the regions, that is critical. It is about understanding what the actual focus areas are. What is the added value from one region to another with regards to innovation? And you need to have heat maps, aligned technology roadmaps in order to align the thinking between the 2 regions. And it is also about making a mission statement for the partnership. What are the unique selling points for the partnership, the corridor partnerships? These kind of things are critical to identify within the first part of the establishing a corridor. And it's very often that it's only being addressed at the end of the development of a corridor, of a European project. And that's then creating a problem for continuity. Because if you don't have a clear idea what your mission and what your aim is of your corridor, then it will all drop down. You need to have so much funding made available for you to understand all these kind of things that the return on investment is too low, and people stop the structural collaboration quite quickly. So that was the mission and aim. Let's now take a look at organization and government. So for me, just take a look at government at this moment. These are the different elements that you can think about. Internal organization, how you're dealing with your external ecosystem on a regional level. What are the responsibilities for each side of the corridor? What kind of legal structures you can take? What kind of organizational elements are there? And this is an overview of all the things that you can do. And let me tell you, give you one example. A memorandum of understanding is very often what is done. So one region will tell another region, oh, we want to do this, and we are engaged and fully committed to do this. If it's just a piece of paper, it will not help. So you need to do much more than just a memorandum of understanding. The memorandum of understanding must be the final piece of establishing governance. Financing. This is an overview of possible financing mechanisms that might be available. And it is about understanding how the corridor can be financed and how the innovation projects can be financed. So the innovation project is where the actual value is. That is a concrete collaboration between one entity within one region and another entity in another region, and how they can exchange some value bring a new product into another region, have access to a market, and then sell a lot of innovative projects to the other side of the corridor. How do you finance that? This is an overview of what you can do. We've got much more information about that. And then a very quick introduction about the services, because we are going to go in depth about the services later on a little bit further. What you see is a differentiation between the node services. Those are the services that are offered by the two regions themselves to their individual regional ecosystem, and the corridor services. And you can see here a sum up of all kinds of services that you can offer as a corridor and as a node. And we usually make the distinguish between ecosystem services, technology, business, and skill services. And now I would like to give the floor to Charlotte, who works for the EDIDO, and she has been within the Bowie project working on establishing a corridor with the Slovakian EDI, or Digital Innovation Hub. And she can tell you a little bit more on practical level what has happened. So Charlotte, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Maurits. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Perfect. All right. So hello from my side. Thank you for the introduction and for the interesting overview so far, Maurits. My name is Charlotte Etzert. I work for Digital Hub Management. We are a company located in Dortmund and are orchestrating the innovation ecosystem and supporting the transfer from science to industry, so to say, in our region. And as such, we are also operating the Digital Hub Logistics, and since almost 3 years, also the European Digital Hub under the flag of EDIDO. And in that context, of course, we have some experience as an innovation hub ourselves, but also, as Maurits already introduced, in the establishment of corridors. And yes, thank you, Maurits. I will talk a little bit about how that came to place and how we established that corridor. So how it all started was that we actually became took part in the Bowie project ourselves. The Bowie project had as an aim to connect widening and developed innovation hubs in order to kind of establish those corridors and enable those hubs to profit and benefit from each other by establishing that corridor. And in that context, we were connected to the hub, Digital Innovation Hub in Slovakia, in Košice, which was at that time also yet a Digital Innovation Hub, no EDI yet. So we were mainly in contact with the organization Technicom, who are connected to the local university there. This was our starting point to establish the collaboration. The good thing about the Bowie project was that it was not only meant to establish that collaboration on a strategic level or on a theoretical level, but also on a practical level. So what it actually enabled us was to experiment with the collaboration already. I can say upfront, Maurits already talked about that there are different levels of corridors that you can establish. And what we have established is the level 2, which is a responsive level, which is based on a reactive and rather informal approach, and which also enables us to work on opportunity-driven and demand-oriented level. I will go into detail with that a little bit later. If you can go to the next slide, please. in the very intensive process of getting to know each other, we figured out that we both actually have the main goal to support the SMEs and companies in each of our regions individually, and everything that we do should serve ultimately the purpose of supporting and fostering their capacity to innovate and become more digital. So we agreed that our main, or that the aim and the mission of our corridor should also be oriented towards that and not towards a self-purpose driven corridor. And the aim, therefore, we discussed is to offer the best possible holistic and demand-oriented support to SMEs in the regions of Košice and the Rhine-Ruhr area where we are located. And we want to do this, if you go back just once, we want to do this mainly by addressing these two challenges. On one hand, we want to extend the range of competencies and services through our collaboration, and on the other hand, we also want to provide SMEs the opportunity to more easily expand to each other's markets. And this actually came to place because during the BOWI project, we supported, or we as Digital Hub Logistics in Dortmund supported 4 SMEs from the region of Košice. We did that with the partners from our innovation hub, but also in collaboration with other partners that we have in our ecosystem here. And when looking at these 4 experiments during the project, these 2 challenges that you can see here were the things that provided the main benefit to these 4 companies. So most of them were either looking for services that could not be provided by the local hub, and therefore our competencies from Dortmund were needed, or because they wanted to expand their market to Germany. So these were the key things. Thanks, Moritz. Next slide, please. Yeah, as I said, we are on this level 2 corridor, and therefore have this responsive and demand-oriented approach, which means that we basically do not have some standardized service offers that we offer on a regular basis together, but we rather operate opportunity-driven. So whenever there comes a request or an opportunity, we get together and we create the service basically. And this was also based on the fact that both of our hubs mainly operate in this way. Of course, we have some kind of overall formats that we follow and that we offer to our SMEs, but also in our own region, every time we get in contact with the company, we first listen to what is their demand, what are their challenges, what do they need, and then we provide and kind of even sometimes create the service for them. That's why we also applied this to the corridor. And of course, the 4 experiments that we conducted during the BOWI project serve as a nice template, and we can always use them as best practices and examples to inspire and trigger the imagination of the customers. But yeah, this is basically how we decided to do it. Next slide, please. So this is also reflected in the organization, the governance, and also the financing of the corridor. We got on a regular exchange and on a deep exchange to, of course, get to know each other, to understand which organizations are behind each innovation hub, what are the services offered, what is the structure behind it, what technology infrastructure is there. We visited each other, so we really, the basis for all of this is high transparency and knowledge and a very good connection between each other. But still, we keep it on a flexible and informal governance structure, which can only exist because we built this mutual trust and understanding in the first place. Otherwise, I think it would not work. This also enables us, of course, to work in a lean, low administrative way, but on the other hand also to scale easily in case there is a high demand for cooperation. And this, of course, also means that we have a very adaptive financing model, which is, let's say, positively formulated. But it means that we are, of course, on one hand, either dependent on further funding programs to fund our corridor, for example, through the EDI project, or we need to invest with own institutional funds, or if there is a willingness by the customer to pay for it, of course, that's the ideal case. So coming to a conclusion, I think you already sensed it from what I said. For us, the Bowie project was really key to establishing this corridor. Those 4 experiments were key because we could try out how can this collaboration actually work, what can we actually do, what is actually needed. Yeah, so that was very, very important, and enabled us to get to know each other in the first place, and establish this this trust, and also showcase the value of the corridor. Yeah, I think for most digital innovation hubs, it accounts that the ultimate goal is to foster the company and SME and startup landscape in their area. So I think that's very important to keep in mind, that this is always the ultimate goal, and should be strongly represented and considered when establishing a corridor. And finally, the last conclusion, as I already said, this would have not been possible without the funding project of the Bowie, and also continued through the EDI projects, to be honest. So it is difficult to set up and also sustain the corridor without any EC support, at least at the moment. So that's my experience from so far. And with that, I'll give back to you, Maurits.
Yeah, thank you, Charlotte. I would like to also offer the people the opportunity to ask questions now to Charlotte, because I'm sure that there will be quite some questions. So, Justina, I don't know if you saw some in the chat, some questions still.
Not yet, but I would like to invite anyone who has a question to raise their hand, and I will give the speaking rights, or to post their question in chat, and we would be very happy to kick off the discussion of the session.
And in the meantime, I can tell you also that the normal way, a more typical way to establish those corridors is at the IC, as we call it, IC2 level. But it doesn't mean that there's nothing done. What is done is that on the both sides of the corridor, it's more than just a phone number. There's a kind of an institutional mechanism made available. People know about the collaboration with the other side. There are mechanisms already established so if there's a new question, that they can answer quickly. And there's a mechanism to, if that answer needs to be organized and needs to be made formal, there's mechanisms available that can very quickly establish the context. And these kind of things are critical to develop within the were critical to develop in the Bowie project, but also are critical to be developed in the I3 kind of projects, I would say. Try to make it more structural, try to prepare to make it more structural, so it's not just a one-off project, but it's a sandbox for the further development of collaborations later on. And that can be IC3, it can also be IC4, but it's very often it's IC2. So that's some comments from my side. To be honest, I don't see any questions. Or
Do
are
you
there
mind
raised
saying as
hands? Or
well? Okay, here we have some questions in chat. Would you like me to read them out loud?
please.
On a 5C model, contact, communication, coordinate, cooperate, collaborate, where do the corridors fit best or add value? By Richard.
Would you like to answer that, Charlotte, or would I?
I think it's a more general question. So go ahead, please, Moritz.
I think it will be very much about the coordination. So that's where the added value of the corridors take hold. But of course, it is on the higher level. It's very much on coordination. But at IC2 level, it might be contact, it might be communication. You saw in the previous cloud view that communication is at the heart. I do also think that is important. But the coordination of the communication between the two entities, that's a critical thing. And you need to prepare yourself to have a smooth transfer of information about the two sides. How to do that? You need to establish that as a sandbox in the first part of your project. So when you're paid by the European Commission, you need to further develop that. So after the project, you can continue with doing that. Does this answer your question?
I can try to give speaking rights.
Yes, you are
Yes.
correct, Richard. It's institutional governance that you need to, but then again, that is if you get to a higher level. And by the way, getting to a higher level is not the aim. The aim is to optimize the return on investment. So if there are two regions and they can very much benefit from each other, you need to have it on a higher level. If there's once and again there is a potential collaboration, keep it at IC2 level, but really make it on IC2 level, not on ad hoc level, because then it's the barrier to engage with each other will be so high that everyone will say, oh, this is a wonderful, I've got an email from a need from an SME, but it's wonderful, but I'm not going to pursue it because that takes me 10 thousands of euros to establish a contract, and that's not worthwhile. There's no return on investment. So you need to be prepared to do that. So you would be. There's a question from Caroline.
Yes.
Carolina. It would be interesting to be able to see the Bowie platform functioning. Is it possible? We have the Bowie. So the Bowie platform. To be honest, I don't know what you mean with the Bowie platform. Is it a website that you mean? What? Or do you mean the whole mechanism of a corridor? Because we've got information about that.
Carolina, you can also speak.
Okay.
You should be able to unmute yourself now as well.
In between, let's answer Maya's question. Yes, of course. You can do it in with 3 projects. Very often, it's difficult to do it for a lot of projects because the complexity will increase, of course. But we just take the 2, because that's from a communication point of view, it's easier. But you can do it with 3 regions also, and 4 if you need it. But then again, the return on investment to start up a collaboration between 4 regions, it's less difficult. It's less return on investment usually to establish that. Again, return on investment is critical. Can we go to the last part of the presentation? So, and this is more or less, it's a teaser. And it is about scratching a little bit more deeper the corridor services, because within the Bowie project, we really put a lot of effort in trying to understand what those corridor services are. And it's about this. It's about how to create a kind of a gateway and what you need to be able to offer to fast track the establishing innovation projects. And what I already mentioned, we see 4 different categories of services: ecosystem, education, technology, and business. And I would like to very quickly go through them. So, but before I do that, I want to show you this picture. And it's a complex picture, I know that. What this picture tells you is that if you look at the organization of a corridor, it has 2 layers. One is the orchestrator, who enables the collaboration between one region and another. And then there's the members that are offering services to their local industries or whatever customers they have. So the focus of the corridor services is about what the orchestrating can offer in order to make the connection between the 2 members, while the members offer services to their direct customers. And I'm sure you saw this picture already. This is a picture also used in the Digital Innovation Hub framework, where you have the core business being the technology, strategic research, development, contract research, etc., complementary business services to be offered, that there are training skills offered, and then there's the ecosystem. This is all to organize the innovation relay game for your region. We're not looking at that. We're looking at technology services to allow 2 regions to come together. And this is an overview of those technology services. And it can be as high as joint infrastructure investments. So one research infrastructure, one region and another region are aligning their investments, but it can also be a pooling of shared demonstrators, etc., etc. So this is the technological side. For the business side, it's much more focused on the matchmaking between 2 regions. There's some needs on one side, some offering on another side, to help with the matchmaking between those 2 entities on 2 sides of the corridor. That's very much what the orchestrating, so the higher level, the coordination, the corridor services can bring. And the skills and education, and this is very often seen. Peer learning, for example. This is making the connection and supporting the connection between the 2 regions in order that they can learn from each other, how they can do their business and how they can operate their business on a regional level in a better way. And the corridor can support that peer learning. But of course also in educational exchange. That's allowing professor visits or exchange of students, etc., etc. The corridor, again, can help with establishing human resources, human capital, to be exchanged between one region and another. And last, I would say, but not least, it's the ecosystem services. And there, the communication, the information exchange is quite central. So allowing the 2 regions to communicate, offering mechanisms to very efficiently and effectively share the information about best practices, that is the ecosystem services. What I told you is that we've got information on a very practical level. So we will send you an overall view of very detailed information on those different services that a corridor can provide. And then this table that we're going to send you focuses on the node activities. So those are the two regions, as well as examples for the corridor activities. So with that, I come to the last slide, the concluding slide, and this is about just, well, recap of what we try to share with you. For us, return on investment is critical to understand what kind of level of structural interregional collaboration you can have. But the return on investment will increase if you develop a corridor. Because the corridor, sure, it's an investment that you need to do upfront your innovation projects, and you need to use the innovation project as sandboxes to further establish a structural corridor, but it will then return the investments needed to establish post EC initiative new projects. And that's a critical thing to do. And you need to start thinking about the post-project orientation of your EC activities from the beginning, from day one on. If you have a view on how you would like to continue after the projects, you can establish during the project what you need to do upfront. And this is, for example, developing showcases already in the beginning, from the early beginnings on, knowing how those are, making standardized contracts, establishing governance structures that are efficient. Because if you don't have that, then afterwards it will all drop down. So my advice to you is use the individual ad hoc innovation projects as sandboxes to forge the gateway. But I can also tell you it takes quite a bit of convincing for your customers to be engaged in European collaboration. It's not easy, and I hope that the earlier presentation gave you some arguments to convince the people, your stakeholders, to engage in collaboration. And with that, I come to the last slide, and that's just a kind of a sales pitch. We are developing a full-blown corridor mentoring program to empower the people that are engaged with the development of interregional collaboration on a structural way, a structural level. It is a 2 times 2 days intensive training at location, and we're organizing it at quarter 4 of this year. And we'll have a maximum of participants of 12 professionals, but we will repeat this, of course, every half a year or every year, depending on how many people would like this. So if you would like to participate, show your interest and go to our website. With that, I would like to give the floor back to Justina. Perhaps there are some additional projects, additional questions, sorry.
Thank you, Maurits. Before we close, if anyone else has any of their own experience doing activities similar to what Maurits explained, also feel free to share your experience here with us as well. We have some time. We welcome any remaining questions and any experiences you have.
Sorry, I didn't raise hand, but may I ask something? Thank you very much for this really interesting presentation and training. But you mentioned on one of your slides that in in the middle of the corridor there's initiator or something like that. I was just wondering what sort of organizations are those? Are there like business intermediaries, or like clusters, chambers of commerce, or are there more on a national level, like regional authorities, or who are the ones who are like in the heart of the corridor? Thanks.
I would, yeah. What is important here is that there are people that are really looking for the structural collaborations between regions. And what we see a lot is that cluster organizations are very important there. They've got the idea to, and they've got in their mission making the connection with other regions, and they're very often they're seen as valuable entities to engage with that orchestrating kind of role. But it needs to come from both sides. So what is important here is that there's a smaller team of cluster representatives from both sides of the regions that can join up. It can be formal, it can be informal, but it needs to be structural. If that's the case, then it can be organized. By the way, what you very often also see is regional development agencies or that kind of organizations, and also perhaps regional authorities that can jump in and also get engaged in that kind of activities. And so in as being a part of the orchestrating team, lean and mean is important there. But what is important here is that if you do not start with this, setting up this entity from the beginning on, after the project, after a European collaboration project, if you want to engage with setting up something like that, it will never happen again. It's very difficult to do because then you don't have the resources to establish the assets that you need and the structures that you need in order to post-project allow an efficient way of forging corridors. And then it takes too much money.
Thank you. Maybe just to follow up questions. Yeah, maybe in terms of like I3 project, since we are now in this I3 instrument world, let's say, what would you recommend, for example, to the beneficiaries of the I3 projects? In which stage they should maybe or not start to think about this establishing corridors? And is it like something that comes more naturally, or what kind of like efforts they have to undertake maybe to kind of assure, let's say, sustainability as well for the future?
So it doesn't come naturally, to be honest, because there's no normally the actual collaborations are ad hoc level. You need to start from day one, because what you do within the ad hoc projects, because usually a lot of those projects support ad hoc collaborations, which is fine, which is perfect, but you need to use them as sandboxes. So if you establish a collaboration between an SME on one side and an SME on another side, orchestrated by a smaller team of people, you need to use the forging of that collaboration as, okay, if I now establish this collaboration, what can I take from that establishing collaboration that will also help me to initiate another collaboration? Usually what people do is they focus on on executing the one-off project in the best way they can do. Perhaps they should not do that. Perhaps they should limit it a little bit and use the additional capacities or resources to establish the learning much more, and to crystallize the learning into documents or into contracts, standardized contracts, or into making a showcase in a that is helping post-project also the initiation of such corridors. Does this help?
Yes, thank you so much for the clarification.
it is important to really think and really give the people advice how to do this.
Thank you so much, Mike, for your question. We'll wait a few moments if there are any more questions. In the meantime, I will take a moment to remind everyone that new I3 calls are going to be launched this week. The info session is on June 11th, right, Mike? So everyone, please attend I3 Info Day. And our next session, I3 Support Facility, next session is on June 18th, where we will also cover in more detail what is I3 instrument and how to apply to the new and upcoming calls. Thank you all. Thank you all for gathering, and we will see you all shortly. Do not forget to register to our database, and we'll see you all next month. And thank you, Maurits, and thank you, Charlotte, for your time coming here and presenting us your experience with building interregional corridors.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.